Well, that sucked.
Yeah, it did. That was a bad day.
What'd you break?
I broke my 8.5 rear end. I blew out the spider gears in it.
At least we know it had traction that day.
I swear it was going to be on my 1199 pass.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Chasing it. But we got that rear fixed.
Yes, we did.
And if you all stay tuned, we'll teach you a little something, because it was quite the learning experience on our end. So anyhow, here we go. So you broke the spider gears in it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Why is that? Like, what'd you find when you got in there?
So the first thing I found going underneath the car was I had an 8.2 rear differential in it. When I got the diff cover off of it and looked inside, one of the famous tricks back in the day was to weld your spider gears instead of spending the money on a posi unit. So one of the downfalls of welding your spider gears is they last that long. And Buick got torque.
Yeah, and on a sticky racetrack and a small carrier and a welded spider gear, they don't last very long. I've seen a lot of guys do it at the dirt track, but you know, derby cars and stuff like that, but they're beating the crap out of those things anyhow, so who cares? But when you're trying to put some power down in a 3,800 pound Buick, the little 8.2 and the welded spider gears is not a great combination. So how do we end up? What rear end do you have in it now?
I have an 8.5 rear end in it.
An 8.5.
So initially, I was kind of back and forth of what I wanted to do, if I was going to rebuild the 8.2. The issue with me rebuilding the 8.2 was that the aftermarket doesn't really cater to the 8.2 as much as the 8.5. So I wanted to build the rear that it was going to handle what power I wanted to throw at it if I, down the road, decided to try to gain more horsepower in my motor and more torque. So I got my hands on an 8.5, and I kind of went from there.
Yeah, you were kind of being, when you were asking around what to do with it, a lot of people were telling you put a 9-inch in it or put a 12 bolt in it, which is all fine and dandy. They're great rears. The aftermarket has tons of options out there for those. All your name brands like Curry and Moser and Strain, you know, they all have bolt-in, drop-in housings for like a 9-inch. A couple of things to consider there. One is budget. Easily you can drop a couple grand into any one of those rears. Scour Facebook Marketplace, what's a 12 bolt going for nowadays?
The lowest I've seen one is 900 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Is the starting range.
So 12 to 15 is kind of an average of what you're finding out there for one that's in decent shape. Okay.
In stock form.
Yeah, in stock form. So the 8.5 you got for next to nothing.
Yep, a really awesome guy. He knows who he is. Helped me out, and the car that he had given me actually had the 8.5 underneath of it.
So it was out of a 72?
72.
Skylar. So the other thing that we were trying to do is get away from having to buy like different brakes. You know, we wanted something that was more or less drop-in friendly.
Yes.
So something we could swap your rear drums over to and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we chose the 8.5 over the 12 bolt, the 9-inch stuff like that. Even though I think the 12 bolt, we probably could have bolted the brakes in.
Yeah, the 12 bolts should have interchanged pretty easily.
But either way,
budget wise.
Yeah. To start out with a stock 12 bolt at $1,200, let's just put a number right around there. Just didn't make sense to our piggy bank.
No, especially in the fact is, if you listen to all the process of building this rear, it was about $1,200-1,300 I have in the rear end.
With some good stuff in it. So we did the 8.5 in yours. You want to do a little bit quick history kind of on the 8.5s? Not really get too far into it, but...
Yeah. So the 8.5s were originally introduced in 1970. They were there as a supplement to the 12 bolt, and they were there to replace the 8.2. Now in Buick world, the 8.5s didn't really appear until late 71 and 72 cars and on.
So what was one of the cool differences between, say, the Chevrolet 8.5 that you would have found in like the Chevelles and the Novas and whatnot versus the Buick and Oldsmobile stuff? So like in the Skylarks and the like the Apollos and stuff like that.
The only difference was Bolden axles. BOP ran Bolden axles, which were nice compared to the C-clips that Chevy had, because the Bolden axles, if you broke something, you didn't really have to worry too horribly about the axles letting go outside of the car.
Yeah, it keeps it under the car. Unlike the fella in this next clip.
So what type of cars can you find the 8.5 to be able to find for your build?
Oh, there's a couple of them. Most of the time, if you're later, like 71-ish is when GM really started putting them out there and getting rid of like the 8.2. So probably any 71, mid-year 71 Chevelle, Nova, Camaro, stuff like that. In the Buick world, you got
anything after 71 later. You got the Apollo, all the A-body Buicks.
Yep. So that'll lead us into kind of the next thing is a few of the differences that kind of made us okay with going with the 8.5. Realistically, they're not all that dissimilar from, say, a 12 bolt. They share the same pinion in diameter, 30 spline, stuff like that. The ring gear, not that much bigger.
No, it's really not.
So it's like 8.5. So it's an 8.5-inch ring gear on the 8.5, and the 12 bolt was like an 8.875. So it's like 3/8 of an inch difference. The one advantage to that though, so where do they get the 10 bolt and 12 bolt designation?
Is the ring gear bolts that give it that name.
So 10 bolts have 10 bolts in the ring gear. 12 bolts have 12 bolts in the ring gear. So that's a lot of people. Now, there is similar correlations to the amount of bolts in the cover, but it's not realistically what they're after there when you're describing them. The difference is the axle size.
The 28 spline.
In the 8.5, and then 30 splines mostly in the 12 bolts. There was the 8.5 did come with a 30 spline in like your trucks.
Yeah, and the trucks and like the C10s and stuff.
Yeah, and your Blazers and whatnot, your full-size stuff. But generally in passenger cars, they were limited to a 28 spline. So basically, to get that whole argument off the table where the 12 bolt is so much superior versus the 8.5, don't believe everything you hear. They are great, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot you can do with an 8.5.
And the aftermarket caters to the 8.5 pretty decently. So I mean, if you're going budget friendly, sometimes you gotta work on a budget.
Yep, and do the best you can with the dollars that you have to spend. So the 8.5 was known as a corporate rear. So they the innards, the guts of them were the same. The biggest difference were the axle flanges on some of the Buick and old stuff. And I think one of the things that caught us is the 8.5 rear that you ended up getting. That one had the bolt-in axles. And the struggle we had was with certain manufacturers telling us that they were kind of their own breed and they didn't really support the Buick stuff, and kind of left us in a moment of, oh crap, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, it was custom made axles and they would only go to a certain spline. And I really wanted 33 spline axles in the thing. So we were getting told left and right that that wasn't going to work and that nobody would support a bolt-in axle that way. And we were kind of processing, you know, I want to do C-clip eliminators, so I don't need a bolt-in axle. But across the board, from manufacturers to other people I've talked to, said that C-clip eliminators and the 33 spline axles would not work in my BOP rear.
Right, and ironically, the flange, when you look at the flange in the particular Buick 8.5 that she had, it mimicked that of like the small GM 10 and 12 bolt flange.
Yeah, the flange was pretty mirror the same, other than in the Chevy, it came off and where you'd cut it for the C-clip eliminator, but mine was just flat.
Yeah, so where the bearings, the axle bearings would actually be held in, you know, you got like your flange and then there's a stub that comes off your axle bearings in there. And your Chevrolet style 8.5 and 12 bolt, that had C-clip axles in it. You know, when you would install an eliminator, a C-clip eliminator, you would actually cut that bearing register off of the end of the axle tube. So you'd have the tube would come back, you'd have your flange, and then it would be flat, and your eliminator would bolt to that. We won't name the names, but the popular manufacturers, we called them, explained to them, pretty much all but hung up the phone on us as far as trying to put an axle package together for this thing. The thing with the bolt-in axles and retaining that, to go to the 33 spline, they would have to machine the axle down, and in order to fit the bearing, I believe it's like a set 9 bearing, into that housing. And they're against doing that for good reason, because as you cut the axle diameter down, you're losing all the strength out of it. So that doesn't make any sense. Our argument to that fact was, though, that if you would hold the gasket for the C-clip eliminator up to that housing, to that flange, it was identical. And besides the cutting the axle down for the bolt-in axle, the Buick style, their only other argument was that it would leak. Now, I've heard that about C-clip eliminators across the board for a long time. Street-driven cars, they leak. Did it leak yet?
Nope.
No, and she drives that thing to work at least. If the weather's nice, at least once a week. So, and I've street-driven my car with the same setup in it. Nothing. I've never had any leaks.
We drove that an hour and a half one way and the whole way back.
Yeah. No. So there's a lot of misnomers, I guess you should say, and I'm sure there's people that have had issues with it. And I understand that their idea behind it is that the C-clip eliminator is they're made out of aluminum, so then there's a lot of weight shifting around, like lateral forces on the street where you're turning, that, you know, can maybe cause that flange to warp a little bit, or the two pieces to warp and cause leaks. That's understandable, but I really don't think that should be a deterrent for taking this route, especially if you have a Buick rear and you're trying to save money, we'll just touch on it briefly. You can cut the housing ends off and weld like Ford ends on it, and do it that route. But if you don't have an axle jig to do that, and if you don't know how to weld, you don't have a weld, like you're gonna take that somewhere, and that it can be done, but it's expensive. And then also finding the brake packages now to fit with the new housing ends and all that stuff. So we scratched all that off the board.
Yep.
And basically we will show you that we ordered everything for
A Chevelle.
Yep, because the axle housing is the same width as the Chevelle. It's a body rear, right? The guts are all the same.
Yep.
So we ended up ordering a kit from Strange.
Yep. For a Chevelle.
Yep, and it all bolted in perfectly fine.
Yeah, that was actually one of the easiest things to put together so far on this car.
Yeah. Yeah, no problems, trouble-free. It's been how many passes now at the track? Enough.
At least 20.
Yeah.
At least.
And before we even raced it, we put Richmond gears in it.
Mm-hmm. That we did. We put the 342 gears in it. So you remember driving the braking procedure for it. So, running it 25, 30 minutes and then letting it sit and cool and doing that. Put like 500 miles on that thing. Those 500 miles, they were a struggle. Your car's broke, you get it out, you're like, oh yeah, I want to do a burnout. Nope. It was a struggle.
She struggled. But we did it. And did it without any issues, even though a lot of people were telling us it couldn't be done. So as far as, tell us like what all you did in that rear. So what's the setup? What kit did you order from Strange?
Oh, I don't know the part number.
We'll put the part number in the description. You don't need to be that technical about it.
Okay.
Just tell us what.
Alright, so I did the 33 spline axles with a full spool. It has the 342 Richmond gears in it. And then I also got a differential cover from TA Performance. That thing is nice. I recommend it.
The girdle.
With the girdle.
5/8 wheel studs.
The 5/8 wheel studs.
Go big or go home.
Yep. When I was processing the different studs that I was going to use, I kind of figured, I don't know exactly just yet how fast I'm going to make this car, how much power. Might as well just get the best one, because then if you get up there, you don't have to change them later on.
Now, in like yours and mine, when we went to the full spool you can't fit a 33 spline locker, a 33 spline axle in a standard carrier.
No.
So that is kind of its own configuration. So Moser and Strange both sell that kit.
Yes, they do.
Right. But they manufacture the spool, or the carrier has a different size diameter bearing that still fits in the stock case in the housing, but the inside diameter is larger, which allows the facilitation of
The 33 spline axle.
the use of the 33. So that's how you make that happen. What else? The only other thing that we had to change, because the difference to go from an 8.2 to an 8.5, I think we figured it up. The drive shaft was like a 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch shorter to go to the 8.5. Now that was with a turbo 400 transmission,
Yes.
right?
Did we touch on that?
No, we didn't touch on that.
So stay tuned for the next video, because when I took out my 8.2 rear, I also ate my turbo 350.
Yeah, transmission rear end left the chat just like that.
All in one swoop.
So was an expensive endeavor.
Yeah, I was in a fetal position in a corner while my bank account was getting raped. I was pretty. No, take that out. No, it wasn't horrible.
It was rough though, but yeah, we have. We can touch on that maybe in a video.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't get any video of us rebuilding the 8.5. We have a bunch of photos, or the Turbo 400, but we figured we would do a couple videos to kind of fill you guys in on what we did
over the past year. But yeah, that may be another thing if you are swapping from say an 8.2 to an 8.5 that you may have to address. Is there's a slight variation from in the length of your drive shaft. Now if you have, so they made like Buick Skylarks and Chevelles with turbo 350s and an 8.5 in them. So let's say your Chevelle had an 8.2 in it, but you had like an early Chevelle, like a 68, 9, 70, something like that, or Buick, and that had a turbo 350 in it, and you want to go to an 8.2, well, then the only thing you have to do is you want to
go to an 8.5.
Right, from an 8.2, then you would just need to find a vehicle like yours, Chevelle, Skylark, whatever, that had a 350 in it and had an 8.5 in it, and you can probably use a factory drive shaft.
Yeah.
For certain power levels, if you're trying to put down a lot of power, I would definitely upgrade. I think we had the local truck shop make yours up, which was a 3-inch tube, 1350 U-joints, and we got a good billet yoke for both ends on the rear end, and up at the transmission for a turbo 400. I think we spent $250-$300 on it.
Yep, about $300.
You have those options too, or there is a slew of places, aftermarket places online that will build you a drive shaft as well. Just make sure you look at how they want you to measure for your drive shaft and follow their directions, because last thing you want to do is end up ordering a drive shaft that's too short or too long. It sucks when you come up short in the shaft area.
Stop it. Get some help.
So, anyhow, I guess the point of this video was to say that yes, you can do it. You can take a Buick 8.5 out of a Skylark that had bolt-in axles in it, if you have the right flange, and put C-clip eliminators in it, a 33 spline axle, a full spool, 5/8 wheel studs, and drive the sucker on the street and race the crap out of it and not worry about it.
100%.
We did it. So, anyhow, what are we going to get into in the next video? We got a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up in May, we're going to be going to
Bowling Green, Kentucky.
the Buick Nationals.
I am stoked. Unfortunately, I won't have my car out there, but I am going to meet a bunch of cool Buick guys, and we're going to show you a bunch of cool Buicks.
Yep, so stay tuned for that. Even if you're not into Buicks, it's just going to be a lot of classy cars and a lot of drag racing down there. So we got that. Our hometown track opens up in April. I believe it's April.
It's like April 14th or 15th, something like that.
And there's a no prep event coming up that we might go to. Probably won't race it, but at least be there to try to film it in April at South Mountain Raceway. So we got a lot of that stuff. I still got to do a video on the Monte Carlo. Since I've first had this channel, it's going through a couple of phases, but I really didn't ever touch too much on the car and what got done in the past.
Stay tuned for that. His last video on his Monte Carlo told you all the things that he wanted to do. So now you're going to get to see what all fun stuff got done to it.
And we got a few more things that we need to address on the car. Just some stuff that kind of wore out over the past year, and some things I want to kind of change, just to it's more of a safety aspect than anything.
Yes.
Because the car is it's getting there. It's getting there. For what it is, it's respectable. So anyhow, stay tuned for all that stuff, and do the YouTube thing, right?
Yeah. And if you have any questions about the rear end build or anything, don't hesitate to hit the comments and ask.
Yep. Be sure to do that stuff. Hit the like button, and by all means subscribe and click notifications so that you can stay up to date with what we're doing. I'm Jared.
I'm Jenna.
And
this is Drag Race Therapy.